Hi, everyone, and welcome. If you're just joining us, if you would like to type in what school you're currently attending and any other information that you'd like to share with the group about yourself. We're going to go ahead and get started so that we can make sure we leave enough time for everyone to participate today. We hope that you will chat as we go and participate with us in this discussion about how we can all be sure of ourselves by creating a dynamic personal brand. Presenting today is the Front Range Community College Westminster Campus Admissions and Outreach Team. And my name is Cynthia Farmer, and I'm the Director of Admissions and Outreach at our Westminster campus.
Sorry, I was thinking, are we able to let all the folks in the waiting room? Or is that just showing up for me?
You're muted, Stacy.
Okay, never mind. I was just trying to get everybody in. My
Thank
fault.
you. I apologize. I was responding to a student in the chat and I missed that.
No worries. Okay, I was just wondering if there was something keeping us out. So I can introduce myself now, though. So I'm Hannah, and I'm the Assistant Director, and I work at the Westminster campus in Admissions and Outreach as well.
And I am Janelle Bonavita. I'm one of the Admissions and Outreach representatives at the Westminster campus.
I'm Amanda Chamberlain, a representative at the Westminster campus for Front Range Community College.
All right, and those of you who just joined us, if you want to type in what school you're attending and any other information you want to share about yourself, welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started.
So as you're joining today, you're probably very familiar with it since you've been in this conference so far, but if you could remain muted, please. And then also the chat, we love to hear from you. So be as active as you would like to be in the chat. But also to just a reminder to respect yourself and others well in the chat and get involved, please. And then there are some reaction buttons I think that you have access to. So we will be talking a lot today and have some activities for you. But if you don't mind, if you want, you can throw in a reaction there just to show that you're following us today.
All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about what a personal brand is and why it's important. And then we're going to go into some different skills that will help you create a good personal brand in terms of emotional intelligence, interpersonal communication, and then finally finishing up with some equity and inclusivity.
And then our outcomes for today, we hope that you come with, the civic responsibility, critical thinking, cultural responsiveness, equity and inclusion, effective communication, which also includes the interpersonal communication, resiliency and self-awareness. And so we hope that you will leave this with some resources about how you can kind of incorporate all those and should incorporate all those within creating your own personal brand, the communication, the emotional intelligence, and the equity and diversity and inclusion.
You're muted, Cynthia.
Thanks, Amanda. All right, so now I'm unmuted. Let's get started. So we're going to begin with just exploring personal brand. What is it and why is it so important? And before we move on, I want you to take a moment. Today's conference is about you. It's about leading within your own space. And so I want you to take a moment, take a breath, and envision yourself walking on the beach. And you have the time, the space, and the energy to really think about what you want. What do you want to accomplish? What's important to you? What do you want others to know you as and for? And I guess ultimately the question is, what is your end goal? And this is your legacy, and this is what you're going to build upon throughout your life. So you can go to the next slide, Amanda. Thank you. So the image to the left illustrates where your personal brand exists. And that's somewhere between what others see you and how you see yourself. So does what you think of yourself match up with what others might view you? And that's really important to distinguish. So there is a fun exercise that you can do at another time that might give you some insight into what others think of you. And that is text a really good friend and ask them, send me 1 to 3 words describing what you think of me. And then you want to repeat that same exercise to someone who may not be as close to you, a teacher, a mentor, maybe it's a supervisor at work, maybe it's a colleague at work or classmate, and just ask them to send you an email or to send you a text, so that they have the time and space to think about it. And you can use that to help guide you. Are you where you want to be? Are you being seen as who you want to be seen as? And the image to the right, that's the golden circle. Simon Sinek is a world-renowned optimist and speaker, and he has a lot of TED Talks. If you have the opportunity to go on to YouTube or Google and find out what he has done over the past decade. One of his TED Talks talks about start with why. In fact, he has a book. I have it right here. And this is a really good opportunity for you to gain some leadership insight from others who are skilled at looking at what a successful leader and the attributes are, particularly if you're looking for a career opportunity or if you're launching your own business, for instance. Your brand is important. So if you look at the circle on the outside, that's the what. That really is what people see, right? Your behavior, what you are doing. The how, some people may see some of the how, some of that may be unseen. That could be related to your personality and your work style and your approach to life and how you interact with others. But the why, that comes from inside. And that does show, in fact, it shines through to the what. And so Simon Sinek was really a visionary when it came to understanding that with purpose, we can make the world a better place together. But certainly with purpose and our why, we will find so much more happiness in what we're doing when it gives us purpose. Next slide. So as you think about Simon Sinek's thought that it's not what we do or how we do it, but it's our why, let's look at the brands and talk about that. We encounter so many types of brands, right? So take a moment and I'd love for you to chat a couple of brands that are valuable to you. What comes to mind? Put it in the chat. And why are these brands so valuable to you? And if you go to the next slide, Amanda. Yes, I see Starbucks, certainly. Amazon is definitely recognized by the world. Google, I mentioned it probably a million times in the day. Hey, Google that, or let me Google that. Reputation, oftentimes when Apple is creating these new innovations, everyone's on the edge of their seats because they have a reputation of innovation and technology. The brands we trust, that's really important too, if you think about it, right? Especially when you're in school, we use Word and PowerPoint and all of these brands to access our schoolwork and to complete our work, you know, and if they aren't reliable and we don't trust them, it would make our experience much more challenging. I see Canon. Next slide. Facebook, I saw that on there as well. And if you think about the golden arches, we grew up with that, most of us, seeing those. And then you think of beyond just the distinction of brands, the status, right? So Louis Vuitton, Disney. And so there's a lot to do with brands, right? So if you connect that and you consider how we perceive and value brands, that image, right? The reflection of the companies, it's their character, right? Their values. And if we don't agree with that as a consumer, we probably are going to reject those brands. So the collective beliefs, ideas, and impressions held by others that translates into your personal brand image as well, right? So how are you portrayed? How do others view you? This can be a combination of your attitude, your behavior. Um, it can be how you represent yourselves, your strengths, what you offer as a value, and your talents. All of that really impacts your personal brand and what other people see. So personal brand is really important. It represents your character, who you are as a person. It represents how you want others to know you, how you want others to see what strengths you bring to the table and your talents. And most importantly, your reputation. Everyone, I believe, is unique and has distinctive attributes. Just like we saw in all of those brands, there's something unique about each one of them. Your personal brand is something that you can take action on. You can nurture it, you can build it, you can improve it, you can change it, you can customize it, and you can create a brand image that you take control of. Just Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, is famously quoted saying, "Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room." So when you think about how important your brand is, you really want to think about how do you differentiate yourself from other people, right? How do you build trust? How do you build positive relationships? And most importantly, if you're looking for a job, how do you promote yourself as someone that they want to hire? Your unique abilities and talents are like no other. Developing a great personal brand doesn't happen in a flash, it doesn't happen overnight. It is really important that you communicate to others in the way that you behave, in the way that you talk, in the way that you dress, in the way that you act, your purpose, your why. And I want to leave you with one last thought as you look at this image on the screen. And that is, you'll never get a second chance to make a first impression. So you want to make it one that will set you apart. You want to make it one that will build that trust, that reliability, and truly reflect the genuine person that you are. So like footprints in the sand, you do make an impression. So as you think about all the elements of brand image today, consider how you can make your mark in life by taking the helm to sail your own ship, leveraging your unique talents, strengths, and abilities. You can be sure of yourself to create an effective brand and personal brand image, your legacy.
Thank you, Cynthia. So the first element kind of a personal brand that we're going to discuss today is emotional intelligence. And I'll be referring to that as EI as we continue on today. But something that I really want you to be able to take from this is with emotional intelligence is to really just let your emotions be your compass rather than your anchor. And I want to go ahead and explain what emotional intelligence is. And it's the ability to have deep awareness of your own emotions and the emotions of others, and to use this information to guide your thinking and actions. And so heading into that, I definitely want to talk about awareness. So on the screen here, you'll see two images, and one of them is of Daniel Goleman's model of EI, and then one is a very colorful feelings wheel. And so Daniel Goleman's model of EI, he breaks it down into 5 realms, but what you'll see here is it's actually broken down into 4 different quadrants. And so you'll see self-awareness, which is awareness of your emotional state, recognizing how your behavior impacts others. Then you have social awareness, and that's picking up on the mood in the room, caring about what other people are going through. Then we head into management. So self-management, keeping disruptive emotions, impulses in check, handling change flexibly. You have relationship management. Is it better now? Is the audio better? Sorry, everyone. Then self-management and relationship management. So getting along well with other and handling conflict effectively. And so this is really the foundation of emotional intelligence that I really wanted to go over. And then heading into part of self-awareness is being able to name your emotions. And so that's where the feelings wheel comes into play. And I like to think of feelings as just an analogy of a pilot and a co-pilot. A pilot cannot fly without a co-pilot. And that's the same with our emotions. So we have secondary emotions and we have primary emotions. And our secondary emotions are going to represent the pilot. So they're the emotions such as maybe anger or frustration. They're more of the visible emotions that we show to people. And then our primary emotions are the co-pilot. And they're the more vulnerable emotions that tend to be quite difficult to express. And so I want you to understand that secondary emotions such as anger, they're always accompanied by more vulnerable emotions such as sadness or disappointment. And so understanding your emotions and how you can manage them can determine how we show up to a situation and also how we might respond.
Your audio is coming in and out a little bit. Not sure why, Amanda.
One second. Try another way.
All right. Fun with technology. We'll get there.
All right. So
Awesome. Much better.
great. Sorry about that, everyone. So with learning about how we show up to a situation and how we might respond, our approach to our work, our relationships, and frame of mind, they're impacted by our emotions and how we respond to our stimuli around us. And so it's important to be able to get to a place where you're able to respond to a situation instead of reacting. And this is part of developing your EI because you're aware of your emotions and you're allowing the awareness to guide your emotions. And that's exactly what EI is. And so when you're reacting, it's more of letting your emotions drive. There's not much awareness. You're more in the moment. You're not really thinking through why you're feeling what you're feeling, maybe what have triggered that. But with responding, your emotions and your logic, they're working together. So there's a lot of awareness there. You understand, you're giving yourself that time to understand what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and then you can from there then figure out what's my next step. How am I going to respond to my surroundings currently? And this is where we head into a growth mindset. And so with taking time to be aware of your emotions, the hope is that you can step into a growth mindset. And with time and practice, people with a growth mindset, they believe that they can achieve what they want. And so I do want to let you know that each of us have a mixture of a growth mindset and fixed mindset. I'll be honest, I lean more toward the fixed mindset, and it's a daily just work in progress that I am with my mind. But maintaining awareness to notice when fixed mindset thoughts appear is part of your emotional intelligence and growth and awareness. And I want to, growth mindset tends to be more of the positive, like, I can do this. Like, yes, challenges are great, like, challenge me. And then a fixed mindset tends to be more on the negative side of, like, I don't like challenges. I can't do this sort of thing. And so that's going to lead us into our activity. So I want you to pull up the chat and get ready. I want you to take some time to think about something that you've wanted to achieve, but maybe have not yet achieved. It can be any type of goal. We had some people talk about that they wanted to garden, but they just didn't feel like they had enough knowledge or time, or to learn a different language, or to run a marathon. Just go ahead and use this time to post something in the chat of things that you've wanted to achieve but have not yet been able to. And while that's coming in, I also want, so once you maybe are thinking about that, I want you then to also think about maybe why you haven't achieved that goal. So what are some reasons of why you haven't ran that marathon that you've been wanting to, or speak a different language, or wanting to buy a home? That's an awesome one. Being a teaching artist, that's awesome. Getting into sketching again. Pretty overbearing with self-criticism. Been away for it for some time. Share my ideas in public. Buy a van to travel in. I love that idea. I want to try and finish reading the entire Harry Potter series. I would like to start the Harry Potter series. So those are awesome. And hiking. So these are great. So with these ideas, some of you have already mentioned maybe reasons why you haven't accomplished that goal. But go ahead if you feel that you comfortable enough to share it. Go ahead and share maybe why you haven't accomplished that goal. Someone said, I want to swim with marine animals in the ocean. That would be really awesome. So with that, so I want you to really just be able to use this time to think through, do I have more of a growth mindset when it comes to things or more of a fixed mindset? Because this will then determine a lot of your next actions and also how you view yourself and how then people view you, which is your personal brand, your personal image, what we're talking about today. And so if it's more of a fixed mindset of, I like, like someone mentioned, you know, sharing public thoughts, it's a little scary, or feelings and things like that. It is scary. But it's using that of like, oh wow, okay, this is a challenge. Like, I don't, maybe there's been past instances where you feel like you've failed when you've spoken your mind or things like that. But a growth mindset would be like, okay, let's turn failure into an opportunity. Let's not let it build that wall to provide more roadblocks for yourself. So this is just a great activity to use just in your daily lives, because mindset drives your thoughts, your words, your behavior to take action toward intentionality, toward achieving anything. And so this activity really does show that you have the power to decide your next step, which can either develop your EI or it can stunt its growth. So I do want you to be able to learn to give yourself that space. That space is fine. It's okay to take time to process things and really think about your why, which is what Cynthia had mentioned. It's your why is going to lead to deeper awareness. And also to remember that no matter what we do in life, there will be emotion attached to it. And as we learn to control our emotions, we're then able to better handle and respond to tough situations and take control of our thoughts, actions, and behaviors. And with that, I want to let you know that emotional intelligence and emotions, they look good on you. Okay. And to not be scared to one, to be alone with your emotions and to step into that awareness. And that emotions, they're a great compass. But if we tend to use it as an anchor, it can sometimes weigh us down and kind of shut us off from awesome opportunities that may be in our future. So I want to just encourage you to really present yourself as others as someone who is using their emotions as their compass, and that you're a person that is willing to set sail when anything arises. So thank you so much for chatting. I see some really great things in there, but Janelle is going to go ahead and lead us into some interpersonal communication.
Hey, thank you, Amanda. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the interpersonal communication and kind of, what is it and why does it play this role? So it definitely does affect, your personal brand because its communication is, between two or more people. That's the interpersonal communication. And that could be verbal, that could be nonverbal. And we use our communication to inform people, as Amanda said, to show our feelings and, essentially to influence. Like, we have a lot of YouTube influencers right now. They're using their personal brand and their image and their communication to influence others. So as part of the interpersonal communication and your brand, you want to be authentic. You want to build trust with those people that are following you and going with you. You want to be able to leverage your strengths. What is it that's positive about you? What are the good things about you that you can share with others? And how can you, your own personal strengths of, being a positive self-influencer, how can you use that? Showcase your personality. Don't be afraid to show who you really are, but also, be true to yourself. Don't try to be somebody else when you're trying to, make that personality. And then the biggest thing is, what is the perceived? So what do people perceive about you, and what would you actually like them to perceive about you? So your perceived versus your desired perception of your personal image. And, it really is how you see yourself and how others see you, and then how do you want them to see you? So the biggest ones we think of right now would be our body language and our verbal communication. So interviews, these two examples here, you do your phone conversations, your Zoom conversations, how you present yourself through Zoom. We always say the, Zoom attire, the party, down, you're wearing your pajamas and then your, business stuff up top. So how are you even portraying yourself, dress for success kind of thing when you're doing these things, and just, put on the full outfit for dressing for success. Your firm handshake when you go into an interview, just smiling, having eye contact, having that confident body language, don't being, slumped in, being positive and being out there, and, really preparing for the interview, having good questions, things like that. Those are things that, are easy to show in your personal brand and your body language and your verbal communication. I was saying before, I've had, groups, somebody sit down before in an interview and they said, I've applied for a lot of jobs before recently, and I've gone to a lot of interviews recently, so I really don't know what I'm interviewing for today. Can you tell me? I'm like, well, as the hiring committee, that did not sit well with us, right? They're doing so many different things that they don't even know what they're interviewing for. That was not setting them up for a great first impression. This is kind of the things that have come up about a bit more recently is social media and networking. If you haven't, Google yourself and just see what comes up. Some positive, some negative stuff. See what comes up as you're Googling yourself. Your Facebook profile. We suggest probably that you lock things down on Facebook, Twitter, Insta, all that kind of stuff. But if you're, don't want to lock it down, then that's personal choice, of course. But then make sure that what you're putting out there is really what you want people to see. This cartoon has come into play a lot in that, people are looking at your Facebook page. If you don't think they are, they are. We Google you when you apply for jobs because we want to see what you're putting out there. That's part of who you are and what you're doing. So you want to make sure that you're creating, a positive brand out there, as well as your email address. What are you putting on LinkedIn? There was an article I read about your LinkedIn profile. If it's a random holiday picture or cats with lasers behind you, what are you actually portraying? What are you showing people when they're looking at your LinkedIn profile? Your business cards, your email communications, how you present yourself on email. We talk about this a lot in admissions, that we get very interesting email addresses, good or bad sometimes, but one of them, Sexy Grandma. I'm not sure why that person has that email address, why they put that out there, but that's, it's Sexy Grandma at Yahoo or Gmail or whatever it was. Or the one we got not too long ago is, I hate getting new email addresses at Yahoo or Gmail or whatever it was. People are putting that out there, and that's kind of shows a little bit about you, whether you like it or not. We said also be careful of your name sometimes even. It's kind of a fake example, but we have a Linda, last name Oser, O-S-E-R. So she does her first initial and last name, which is a very common email address, first initial, last name. Well, that makes her email address loser because she's an L Hoosier. So even thinking through some of those things that you don't really want your email to portray something that you're not. Also voicemail messages, your ringback tone. I've been on hiring committees before, I'm calling somebody and their ringback tone was a fairly offensive song. And that was not something really I wanted to be hearing when I'm calling them for an interview. Or even what you say in your message, calling somebody and they say, okay, leave me a message or don't. That's not, is that really what you want to play out? You want to say your name in your voicemail message. You want to put yourself out there in a good light. And then obviously, social media, the Facebook, the LinkedIn, what you're posting on LinkedIn, and so your employer is definitely going to search for you. And so you want to put your best self out there. And if you don't think this is important, this is a good example of why it is. RepRite, this is a company and their entire job is to do online reputation management. Erin works with companies and works with individuals who have, for whatever reason, not had the best online reputation. And so she works with companies and she works with individuals to make sure that they get themselves back on a good side of Google and to be able to put their company up on the top part of Google. That's one thing she also does as well. It's not necessarily the redefining the reputation, but also just making sure that they have a good reputation on Google so that when you search, they come up first on that line. And also just her bio is kind of interesting as well, because she points out that, she's been part of social media before it was social media. Her background and that she writes in here all about herself is very true to who she is and really also shows her personality. And she kind of exemplifies what that is to have a good online reputation. Okay, and so, kind of the last thing of this part of the communication part is, what message do you communicate and versus what you would like to communicate? So, we say that have a growth mindset in your communication. Like Amanda was mentioning, you want to make sure that you are preparing for that next step. Some of you, have some different goals of being, I saw in there like a teacher or, working, getting different degrees and stuff. Are you putting out there what you want and how can you achieve those goals? Are you proactive? You may be in school now, but you may be interviewing for jobs, or you may be setting up a business, portraying that proactive personal brand. And then also you will communicate better once you know yourself better inside and out. And that's why that growth mindset and the emotional intelligence and the equity and diversity, why all this stuff is so important and so ingrained in that personal brand. So we want you to be sure of yourself. We want you to come out of your shell, take some time to coast, enjoy life, avoid the peer pressure and see life's, overall beauty. So we want you to think of all those things in your personal brand.
Great, thanks, Janelle. I'd like to move us into talking a little bit about equity and inclusivity and how that fits in with your personal brand. The first thing that I'd like to talk about is just to define the terms. I think these terms get thrown around quite a bit, and I think it's helpful to get everyone on the same page, although folks have probably heard these words before. I'd like to say that identity is defined both internally by oneself and externally by others in society, and those two may match or may not. Every person has multiple identities and they often intersect. And so how one person experiences an identity may not be the same as someone else who shares that identity just because of the other identities that they have. I define diversity as the presence of difference. And so I would argue that we have diversity. We have diversity in our workspaces, in our classrooms, and we have difference there. The piece that we need to focus on then is to really create the inclusion and the equity. And I define inclusion as a conscious effort to include, embrace, and to understand all without regard to bias and prejudice. And the key words there are the conscious effort, because it takes some work. And you have to be able to put in some brain power to think about that. And so it's not just something that the difference is there, it's about consciously being able to include them and take their identities into account. Equity, I would define as the fair treatment, access, opportunity, and advancement for all people, while at the same time striving to identify and eliminate barriers that have prevented the full participation of some groups. And this is definitely something that folks have to work on as well. It's not as easy to incorporate the equity into your personal brand, but it's definitely something that hopefully everyone is seeing the need for and working for. And so that hopefully your efforts are also leading to that as well. So a model that I think is helpful to kind of frame this is Hall's iceberg model of culture. And you can see that here. And basically, we don't have a lot of icebergs in Colorado, but you may know that icebergs, about 10% of an iceberg is above the water, and about 90% then is below the water. And so what Hall did is said that people are basically like icebergs too. About 10% of a iceberg is, or 10% of a person is something that you can observe about them. So 10% of who they are is something that you might hear if they speak, you might see in the way that they dress or their behaviors, things like that. And 90%, the vast majority of who we are, is not observable. It's below the water. And we don't know that about someone unless we ask or we somehow intentionally get to know them. And so if you would, while I'm chatting, while I'm talking, you're chatting, sorry, throw in the chat some things about you that are observable and some things about you that are maybe not observable, but are really important pieces of who you are. One example that I like to use is that I think my race is pretty observable, and it might be hard if I'm just a little square on your screen to see, but I am from South Korea, so I think I look very Korean, and that's observable about me. But something that's not observable is the fact that I am adopted. And so, I don't have any signs or anything on me that says adopted anywhere. There's no flashing lights that hang out above me. That's something that's really important to me and really has shaped my experience without being something that you can really observe. And so again, things that folks may interact with me based on the observable pieces, but that non-observable is definitely something that's key to who we are. So with that, again, another important part is that, awesome, thank you for throwing stuff in. Yes, just the way that you act, maybe your religion, things like you wear like glasses. Oh yeah, definitely. So thank you for engaging in those. Yeah. So with those things that are observable and not observable, um, the piece that I think is sometimes hard for us to grasp is that we really like to treat people based on that 10%. We see someone, we interact with them, and we think we know them. But as we can see from the iceberg, the majority of who we are is not observable. And so where I think that gets us in trouble sometimes is that we have a certain intent that we enter into when we're interacting with folks. So when we're saying something or doing something, we have an intent behind those actions or those words. But because we don't know a whole lot about the person, we may have a differing impact. And so we have to be responsible as humans, as people in this world, for not only our intent, but also for our impact. Something that I like about this is that, so Dr. Mara Cullen writes a book called 35 Dumb Things Well-Intended People Say, and it's a very good book. And I've said most of the things, but it's something that one of her key concepts is this idea of intent versus impact. And a good quote from her is that just because we don't intend or mean to hurt someone with our words doesn't mean it still doesn't do just that. So sometimes we go into something with very good intent, but it might hurt someone. And when I like to think about this, when we were not necessarily socially distancing, you might have come across the situation there in the picture where you accidentally stepped on someone's foot. Yes, the book is Dr. Mara Cullen, and again, it's 35 Dumb Things Well-Intended People Say. And I can chat that when I'm done talking because I can't talk and type at the same time. But a lot of times when we were able to get closer than 6 feet to people, maybe we accidentally stepped on someone's foot. Maybe we accidentally bumped into them with our backpack in the halls, something like that. And so oftentimes when I would see that happen at Front Range, people were really quick to be like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bump you, I apologize. And so just in the same way, when you apologize, it doesn't mean that just because you didn't mean to hit them doesn't mean that it might have not still hurt. If I had a heel going on my toe like that, that would hurt. And so I think that we're quick to apologize when it's physical, but when it is verbal, sometimes we don't do the same. So some thoughts with that. I think kindness is totally important, but kindness is not everything because again, inclusion takes that conscious effort, that it takes some work. And so being inclusive is something that you have to continually work on. It takes a willingness to remain open. And I know that I mess up every day. And so to be open to that dialogue and that feedback and to change and grow and learn, because that's something that we can do, that growth mindset. We can change and learn and grow. We would really encourage you, or I would really encourage you, I should own it, to make inclusion a part of your brand because, again, I think it's very important and it has a huge impact on the way that people interact with you. And if you go to the next slide, if you think about these questions, which we don't necessarily have time to answer in the chat, but if you can think of a time that someone said something to you that impacted you differently from how they intended, and then, or perhaps thinking of a time where you said something differently that had a different impact, you can think about the feelings and maybe recall some of the actions and things that happened at that time. And so it's easy to try to explain away and make excuses for that. What's not as easy is to take ownership of that and to really learn from the experience. But I believe that that's really what we need to do to have a good personal brand, to show people that you are authentic, that you can be vulnerable, and that you care about the people that you're interacting with. So again, I would just encourage everyone to think about making that conscious effort to create spaces of inclusion while you're working on your personal brand.
Well, thank you, Hannah. That was awesome. I'm just so inspired today by this presentation because every day we learn and grow, and every day we meet others that can inspire us. And so understanding how your impact, your brand can make a difference in this world, how it can be positive, that's a good place to be. Know your why. What's your purpose? Even if your purpose is only for today because you're trying to figure out maybe what path you want to take, that's okay. We all have goals. We all have life, long goals and short goals, but knowing your purpose can really create a more genuine brand for yourself and opportunities. But having the awareness of when your fixed mindset may kick in, it happens to us all the time. This is too challenging. I don't know how I'm going to overcome this. And just flipping, like Amanda said, if we have and maintain a growth mindset, it's just one foot in front of the other. It's not about capability or ability. It's about the will and putting one foot in front of the other to make that step towards reaching our goals. And then understanding, as Janelle said, how we portray ourselves does make an impact. So do you want to be intentional about that impact or let things kind of coast on their own randomly? Paying attention, being aware of not only yourself, but how others perceive you can really be helpful as you navigate your goals and your path to create your legacy. And lastly, just reemphasizing that with the power of growth mindset, I feel like a superhero myself. So just every day waking up to know that we have control over our emotional intelligence and can build that. And with growth mindset, where there's a will, there's a way. And it's just amazing. Thank you so much for being here. We'd like to be able to take some questions or comments if you want to chat, or you can unmute if you have a question. And feel free to reach out to us anytime that we can be a support to you, because that's what we do every day. And we really get fired up to help you and help our colleagues and our friends in the community be the best they can be.
Also, Amanda threw it in the chat, but there is a code word. Okay. There is a code word for this presentation. The code word is brand, lowercase. And I think we established that if you go back to the conference website, there is like a game app that you can use to post that.
And thank you for sharing, Philip. I put in a document called Create Your Brand Vision and Statement, and feel free to take that and use that. If you have the opportunity to write down your values, your beliefs, if you have the opportunity to really think through what is my why, and then create just a couple of sentences that if you bump into somebody in the elevator, that you could introduce yourself and practice how you portray yourself. Just really appreciate everyone sharing their experiences and viewpoints and their passion to be in school and to overcome your challenges and be the best that you can be. So congratulations to all of you, and thank you for being here. And we'll stick around for a couple more minutes if you have any questions or comments. And happy Friday, everyone, and have a fantastic weekend.